we feeling, everybody? It's a brand new Village Vice. He's Zach Blackerby. I'm Brad Law. And, man, I'll tell you, if you watched basketball last night and you're an Auburn fan, you're feeling great is what you're feeling. We're going to talk more about that in a little bit. But just as an introductory thought, Zach, we've literally never seen anything like what we saw last night at Neville Arena.
I mean, it was a butt whooping for sure against a really good South Carolina team and a team that everybody thought was kind of trending in the right direction. They still might be. I think they're still a top 4 or 5 team in the conference, but Auburn silenced a lot of doubters last night. But yeah, we'll touch on that in a little bit.
All right. First things first. The Texas athletic director on Wednesday he made the comments Tuesday. Shed some light on the SEC working toward setting their goal as a 9-game conference schedule in 2026. So I thought it was interesting. He said it's probably another 8-gamer in 25, which is interesting to me that we can't get that worked out earlier, but whatever. But that by 2026, I think it's likely now because he's made these comments, we're going to see a 9-game conference schedule.
Yeah, which is the way it felt like it's been trending for a while. I think that's what gives you the best opportunity for more great games. I'm all for it. I'm all for as many conference games as possible. I know there's a limit where it doesn't make sense, whether it's from a health standpoint or from a money standpoint, or you need bye games or whatever. Like, I get it, but we were told for forever adding an extra SEC game would be detrimental. And then the COVID year happens and everybody played 10 and it was fine. So I'm all for 9. Heck, if they wanted to try to play 12 somehow, Brad, I'd be for it. I want as many SEC games on the schedule as possible.
Well, what are the residual effects? Like there's a lot of different arms to this conversation. Let me take the fan and expectation arm of it first. How does it impact fan expectations for your consistent average record? If you're playing an extra conference game now, so let's say a game like, with all due respect, Akron, Kent State, somebody like you bring in a MAC school. It's not an FCS, but it's not a power conference opponent. The San Jose States of the world, those games go away, and now you have another conference game on that slate. Well, now let's say your average win total dips, I don't know, half a game over the course of 4 years.
Sure.
Do fans expect more? Or are they okay with less? Like, how does that extra game affect fan expectations, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it might take a little bit of time to calibrate, but I don't think if the SEC moved to 9 games, I don't think you're replacing the Akron game. I think you're replacing like Cal's game, Auburn's game against Cal this year. I'd be a little surprised, Brad, if they did 9 SEC games and then you also had to get a P5 opponent. That would be surprising to me. I'm for it. I'm all for it, but I think the schools that are kind of iffy on adding that extra game, I think their bargaining chip will be, okay, well, let's get rid of this P5 thing.
Yeah.
And look, that's probably like a school like Vandy. Like, okay, well, like let's don't get beat up by some non-SEC team every year. I think that's how they would probably be more okay with the pivot.
Yeah, that's interesting. But I'm looking at like the Big Ten, for example. They've had a 9-game conference schedule for a while. Michigan's schedule is the first team I pulled up because they're the reigning conference champion. And I worked with Michigan for a while. So I don't know. They were just first.
You love Michigan.
I got to tell you, I don't mind Michigan. Yeah.
You go to bed thinking about Michigan. You wake up thinking about Michigan. That's fine. Good for y'all. Congrats on your national championship.
For the first time ever, you've gone a little too far. You've been a little too extreme.
Got it.
But their non-conference games, East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, this past year, hasn't always been that way. They've had series with Notre Dame and then had 9 conference games. I mean, it is very interesting, though, to think about an SEC team and what the norm becomes. Do you see 9 conference games, then UNLV, East Carolina, and Bowling Green and is that the game that you see going forward? I do think that's interesting. I do also think that playoff implications may mean more directly than overall records when it comes to the fan base. You're playing 9 conference games, fine, 8 or 9. Are you getting into the 12-team playoff now and then, semi-regularly, regularly? What becomes the scale for what success is?
Well, in the expansion or potential expansion of, going from 8 SEC games to 9, it makes more sense now that there's more wiggle room as far as, the standard of what a college football playoff team is dropping is going from 4 to 12. It's easier to do it now. And we've talked about this before, but if you're a 10-2 SEC team, you're probably in now. You're probably in now. And if you have the right 3 losses and other things happen, a good 9-3 team has a shot. Unlikely, I think, but they do have a shot if things fall the right way. So I'm all for it. And from a fan perspective, I know it's fun. Okay, we're playing Cal for the next 2 years. Or, okay, yeah, we're playing we're playing Penn State in a home and home. And don't we have like UCLA coming up in a few years or something like that?
I think Miami too, maybe.
Sure. Probably like in 2045 or something like that. But I would rather play on just taking this year's schedule, the 2024 Auburn football schedule. Like, I'd rather just play Florida, or I'd rather play LSU again, or this year I'd rather play Ole Miss than Cal. Yeah. That's where I'm at on it.
Yeah. No, I get that. It's interesting when you think, it's a little bit of diversion, but when you think about
Michigan.
No, I'm not thinking about Michigan anymore. You can't make me think about Michigan this show.
Okay. You're the one who brought him up.
I know. I'm just anymore. The NCAA tournament is not enough for some programs. Okay. So I wonder if over time, does a 12-team playoff ever become not enough? I know 12 is different than 64, different than 68. I understand that. But like a Rick Barnes at Tennessee, he's at Tennessee because the NCAA tournament wasn't enough for Texas. It wasn't enough just to get to the tournament. You had to advance to a certain point. So do fan expectations, like, are you okay making the playoff with a 9-game SEC schedule and you make the playoff? Is that enough every year? Do you need to win it every 5 years? Do you win it every 10, get to the semis every 3 or 4? I'm very interested in the scale of success when it comes to fans.
Well, didn't we already see that a little bit with the 4-team playoff? Like Oklahoma during their run, they made it. They never won one. They never got to a national championship in the 4-team college football playoff format. So much so where Lincoln Riley left one of the better football program situations to go to USC because he just thought that would be a little bit easier there to get a little bit farther down that path.
Yeah.
I think we even saw it with Alabama to some extent where they would make it. And then when they would lose in the semifinals, it almost felt like, what's going on? Who'd they lose to this year?
They lost to Michigan.
You keep bringing them up, Brad. I can't stop you at this point, but that's okay. So, but I think we've already seen that a little bit with the 4-team playoff. So I think if you expand it to 12, absolutely. Sure.
That's fair. Sidebar question. Who has the easier route
Michigan
to the playoff? Stop.
Sorry.
And who gets there? It's a beautiful helmet though, isn't it? Anyway, so USC in the Big Ten going forward, or Oklahoma in the SEC going forward over the next 10 years, which program is more successful?
Who was the first one? You said Oklahoma in the SEC.
Oklahoma in the SEC or USC in the Big Ten?
USC in the Big Ten.
Okay. Why? Because it's that hard for Oklahoma, or because you think Lincoln Riley can do things with that offense in the Big Ten?
I think Oklahoma is going to lose some of its advantage going from the Big 12 to the SEC. Instead of playing 3 big games every year, you're going to play 6 or 7. I think with USC, I think there's a lot of programs that are kind of in flux to some extent. Like, I married into an Ohio State family, but like, I don't think Ryan Day is a good coach. And right now, I think they're in the best position in the Big Ten to win a national championship. Oregon's interesting. Washington's interesting. We'll see how they reload after losing their coaching staff. But I think USC, with what it has access to and its path in front of them and the teams that they have to beat, I think USC is closer as far as like status and the ability to acquire talent to Michigan and Ohio State than Oklahoma is right now to Alabama and Georgia.
Yeah. Okay. How much more do you think we see? We're all over the place today, and that's my fault, but I think it's interesting conversation.
No, it's this Michigan stuff you keep doing.
I'm not going to bring up Michigan right now. So Michigan won their championship this year, by the way, but just building the thing.
I'm not going to bring up Michigan. By the way, Michigan won their championship,
which is the opposite of what Ohio State. No, I say all that to say that it's the opposite of what Ohio State is trying to do for next year. It's very like they're the 2008 Boston Celtics, right?
Sure.
That's exactly they're Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen, and they are trying to put together this assembled championship all-star team. Kudos to them for doing it. It's set up in such a way that you can try to do it that way. That's not because it's not how their biggest rival won theirs, but that's the point I'm making is how do we see USC try to do something similar? Do we see an LSU try to do something similar? Like it's just not happening the old-fashioned way. So let's go try to manufacture it in 1 year.
Yeah, like push all the chips into the middle of the table. I think USC kind of already tried it, right? When they went out and got Caleb Williams, who did win the Heisman the year that they acquired him.
Yeah.
And then Addison, right, their receiver. Yeah. They went out and got, the Biletnikoff winner. Right. So they had the previous year's Biletnikoff winner, then that year's Heisman winner, and it still wasn't enough. So I think it's possible to win that way, but I don't know. You need a nice combination. I think that's what Hugh Freeze is doing at Auburn so well. So.
I do too. Yeah. Speaking of combinations, can you tell our the folks about our friends at mybookie.ag? And then I have another schedule thought. A 9-game schedule thought.
Here's the crazy thing about our friends at mybookie.ag. And you always hear all this stuff like the house always wins. And well, if you just bet on that, you're going to lose all of your money. That's not what mybookie.ag is all about. In fact, they're going to give you money. They're going to give you because they love you so much. Not as much as we love you, but mybookie.ag does love you guys a ton. So head over to mybookie.ag. Check out their sports book, their lines. They've got all sorts of stuff for NBA, for college, for futures with college football. I think I actually saw some college baseball stuff on there earlier today, which starts Friday. Very, very exciting. So be sure to check them all out at mybookie.ag. And when you make your first account and you make that first deposit, use promo code next round to get some extra money to play with. mybookie.ag, use promo code next round.
One of the factors that people talk about when you go from an 8-game to a 9-game conference schedule is the imbalance in home games. Okay, so some years you're going to have 5 conference home games. Some years you're going to have 4. All right. This is just kind of a fun idea. Maybe logistically it's impossible to pull off. But if the NFL can play games in Brazil and London and Germany and everywhere else and schedule it just fine. And if we're moving to the NFLization of college football, especially in the SEC and the Big Ten, I think we can pull this off. Okay. Georgia, Florida, Texas A&M, Arkansas are already dealing with an imbalanced schedule. This will balance their schedule in a couple of years if that is indeed what happens. So what if everybody, Zach, played one conference game every year on a neutral field?
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
What would Auburn's permanent conference opponent and neutral field look like?
The easiest one from a geography standpoint would be playing Georgia in Atlanta.
You're right, but they can't do that if they're going to play Florida in Jacksonville because that's 2 neutral games for them.
For Georgia. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Normally I say Normally, I don't really care about Georgia, but in this scenario, logistically, you couldn't do it.
No, you're right. You're right. Alabama and Crampton Bowl. Let's go. Let's go back to Legion Field, baby.
this really new idea, like grocery delivery. Like that's not what used to happen all the time when they bring your milk to your doorstep. Everything
That's
old
right.
is new again. Great idea. Let's play Alabama and Birmingham every year. Gracious.
Well, I'm trying to think of one that's better than that. And
all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
What if you play Vandy every year at the Titans Stadium?
I would love to play Vandy every year. That'd be great.
In that NFL stadium.
Sure. And then that way, Alabama and Tennessee, they can kind of do the same thing on a different week.
Absolutely. And it's good for Nashville. It's good for, it's great for all the Auburn people in Nashville. Yeah, there you go. I don't really have another one that makes as much sense as that, but that was just kind of a.
Yeah. And I was trying to think of a way to like implement LSU. But like there's nothing in Mobile that would be big enough to house that game. So,
right. And you
then
don't
I was thinking Florida, but it's like, well, Florida's already going to the neutral site with Georgia. Yeah. So,
I mean, you can play LSU in the Superdome, but that's a home game for them if you do it that way.
So, to go back to why you brought this point up, the whole imbalance thing. I just think we need to say this more often. We being everyone, not just us. But whenever you hear the word about, the word imbalance when talking about college football, laugh at the person who said it. If they think that that's a genuine concern. And I know you said earlier, I don't think you said it was like a genuine concern, but college football has never been about setting fairness across the board. This whole like search for parity within the sport, it's a joke. Like that's not what it is. And that's kind of what makes it so much different than everything else. And when people talk about college football and what they describe as why it's better than the NFL and all of that, like there's a quirkiness to it. And I don't think that that's what we really need to be searching for here. I don't think balance is the right thing that's not what college football is missing.
Yeah, I think in this context, it's not balance among it's not competitive balance. It's operational budgetary balance. Every year you have 7 home games. Every year you have 4 true road games, and every year you have 1 neutral site game. And you set your budget and you set everything based on that.
Long term, it is balanced.
Yeah.
It's just not balanced year by year.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if is that legitimate? I genuinely don't know.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And we take into the last few years, the travel, I know just in our front office from the radio perspective here, the travel budget is very different in years that you go to Arkansas and LSU and Texas A&M and Kentucky or wherever else you're going to go. And then the very next year you go on Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Georgia, Alabama, and half of those are same day trips. Yeah, it's just a very different budget. But that's coming the next year. So you almost operate on a 2-year cycle.
Yeah, right.
And so if you don't go with our genius idea of an annual neutral site static game, then you just move your budgeting to a 2-year process rather than a 1.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Right. Speaking of a budgeting process, Brad.
Yeah. Well, we're going to try to save you some money here. Our friends at Manscaped, you know this deal by now. And if you haven't taken advantage of it, what are you waiting for? You're going to be left out in the cold, and nobody wants to be left out in the cold. Warm things up with Manscaped, 20% off plus free shipping with promo code VICE. And, the star of the show for Manscaped is the 5th generation lawnmower. It is not just a trimmer. It's your grooming sidekick. We're talking about 2 skin-safe blade heads, a standard one to, take a little off the top, and then a new foil blade to go smooth wherever you want to go smooth, wherever your heart desires. It's like having a personal stylist at your fingertips or wherever you need it. And did we mention that it's waterproof, Zach? It is a trim
game changer.
Shower. It's huge. Trim in the shower is the only way to start the day.
Tell them about the light, Brad.
It's got, the LED light. It's the brightest LED light yet. And it's also, you can get it by itself, or you can get the Lawnmower 5.0 as a part of the Performance Package 5.0, which includes the nose and ear hair trimmer, the aftercare products, the crop soother ball aftershave lotion, and the crop preserver anti-chafing ball deodorant. That and so much more at manscaped.com. The best in men's grooming. Use promo code VICE for 20% off and free shipping.
Wow. So Auburn destroyed South Carolina.
Yeah.
That was fun.
You've never seen anything like it, literally. It is the largest victory over a ranked opponent in program history. So
and I imagine that'll last a while. I mean, 101-61, that's insane.
I remember coming to the building I'm in right now, Beard Eves Coliseum, and watching the 99 team. No, the games weren't in black and white. They were in color. Watching the 99 team just destroy everybody they played here. But not a ranked opponent by 40. We saw Walker and Jabari just 2 years ago run through the league, but not by 40 over ranked teams. That was simply, I mean, the most points South Carolina had given up before last night in a game was 77.
That's absurd.
So it's not like it's impressive that Auburn scored 37 more points than what they allow per game on average. But to score not 4, but 24 more than they had allowed in a game, in any one game. I think anyway, and I try not to be hyperbolic with stuff all the time, but I think that's the kind of game to respond to the Florida game that way. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to minimize South Carolina. Now, I don't know that they finish top 4. They will absolutely finish top half, and they may still finish top 4.
Yeah.
But I think that's the kind of game you look back on and go, that it was really critical for the team to respond in that way. And it shows you that, yeah, we've thought all year they're capable of really special things that haven't been done. This team has now done a handful of things that had not been done before. And this is the latest one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's well said. There's been so many comparisons from this year's team to the 2018/2019 team that made the Final Four run. And look, this is a team that team went into they got destroyed by Kentucky on the road. And then after that, they played their best ball of the season. And obviously it's just one game. Mm-hmm. And what the team did last night is different than what that Final Four team did. They went to Georgia and in fact barely won.
Nearly lost. Yeah, needed a Chuma 3.
Yep. Good memory.
Yeah.
But they just continually found ways to win. But it's hard not to think about that a little bit, where it's like, okay, we've seen this Auburn team get whooped on the road now twice, or underperformed drastically on the road twice. And it's like, how did they respond? Really 3 times if you're going to put App State in there. Mm-hmm. And every time they've responded really, really well. So that was encouraging. And obviously with Kentucky coming to town on Saturday, that I don't know if they take care of business on Saturday, that the road to where you want to be gets a lot clearer.
You know what's a really strange question or sentiment to think about with Kentucky coming in Saturday?
Oh, there's a lot. There could be a lot here. Where are you going with this?
That's true. But here's the one I'm going to throw out there at
Michigan?
Okay. Is it wild to think that Auburn has to guard against a letdown Saturday?
Against Kentucky?
Against Kentucky.
If it was on the road, I'd give that to you. With it being at home,
No, I'm not saying they will.
Yeah.
But think about it. You come off a 40-point win over the 11th ranked team in the country. And now you have the 22nd ranked team in the country who is so far flown under their expectations.
In conference play for sure.
Yeah. Now I do think the fact that it's Kentucky, like that does count for something.
These guys, and just getting to know some of these players over the last few years, like Auburn players don't like Kentucky.
Yeah.
I don't think so. If it wasn't Kentucky, like if for some reason, we're playing Ole Miss again, and Ole Miss is 22, like that would be fine. But even then, there's some like personal stuff there. Like these guys don't like Kentucky.
I think it comes from the top down, if I can just be honest about it.
Sure.
Like,
And that's okay. That's
yeah.
fine. But
Think about some of the wars that Bruce had with Cal when Bruce was at Tennessee and Cal was at Memphis.
sure.
I mean, this thing goes back. It's got roots.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. So I'm all for it. I'm all for the passion. I'm all for, players not liking each other and all that. I think it's great. It's good for the sport. So I can't wait. I can't wait. It's going to be a blast. It's like $500 just to get into the door. So if you're going, good for you. Cheer loud. It's going to be a great one. But I'm not picking against Auburn right now, especially at home.
No. Especially, yeah, exactly. I heard somebody say, I thought this was great. I wish I could give them specific credit, but I don't remember exactly where I saw it. But Joe Biden ought to put the national debt on a money line for Auburn at home because it's not enough. It's just not enough for Auburn at home. They will cover.
Yeah. Dude, I got a little worried Wednesday morning when I saw the line was like 11.5. It's like, that's a lot. That's a lot against a ranked team. It's like, what is going on? It almost made me nervous.
Yeah.
And then it's like, nope, they know. That's why the buildings are really big over there. So, Brad, I think that about does it for today's show.
It does. Thanks everybody for watching and participating. We read the comments, so make sure you give us your thoughts as well.
Serious question. Does Brad like Michigan too much? Comment below.
Stop it. It's fine though if you want to weigh in on it. Everyone has vices. Remember that. Everyone has vices. Make sure Village Vice is one of yours.